to the American citizens we serve. When I took the oath of office, I swore to protect our country. And that is what I will always do. So help me God. Thank you and good night.
At 4:58 a.m., George Bush Intercontinental Airport, Houston, Texas. The FBI battered through the security operations wing and put the airport's own security chief in cuffs, accusing him of silently feeding the CJNG cartel's fentanyl pipeline straight into America. Cameras disabled. Gates opened. Thousands of deadly shipments cleared under his watch. And agents warn, this wasn't corruption. This was a foreign power inside a U.S. airport, and what they uncovered next could shake every airport in America.
And 8 people accused of smuggling fentanyl into our state through airports.
That's enough to potentially kill 7 million people. Police arrested one suspect at an airport.
At 4:58 a.m., in a single coordinated sweep, FBI and DEA agents moved toward the security operations wing, quick, controlled, and unannounced. Inside, Carlos El Rojo Mendez, the 41-year-old airport security chief, was finishing his pre-shift briefing when a battering ram slammed into the door. Agents rushed into the room. Mendez froze. Within seconds, 12 other security officers were arrested, each accused of accepting cash to look the other way, as packages of drugs crossed the border disguised as legitimate cargo. To observers, it looked like a routine federal arrest, but investigators said it was something much darker. According to sealed affidavits, Mendez wasn't just a corrupt official. He was a right-hand man for the CJNG cartel, operating from inside one of the busiest airports in the United States. His job was simple: open the gates, shut off the cameras, and ensure the drugs kept flowing north. By dawn, the airport was still operating, but the sense of security had been quietly shattered. If you want to see how deep this infiltration really went, comment "continue" right now. To most people inside the airport, Carlos Mendez was the kind of person they trusted. His record showed praise, spotless conduct, and impeccable reviews. But behind that uniform lay a past no one knew about. According to federal investigators, Mendez had been recruited by Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generacion years earlier. Not as a smuggler, not as a courier, but as something far more dangerous: a long-term infiltration asset. The cartel didn't need him to personally transport drugs. They needed him to open doors. Documents recovered from encrypted messages show that Mendez had gradually built a loyal circle within the security operations team. He identified officers with debt problems, family troubles, or simply a desire to make a quick buck. Then came the offers, initially small, a few $1,000s to ignore a suspicious shipment. By 2024, the payments had increased to $6,000 to $15,000 per person, depending on the cargo. Under Mendez's direction, CJNG shipments passed through the airport disguised as refrigerated mechanical parts, agricultural samples, or medical equipment requiring long-term preservation. Inside those containers were packages of fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine, shipped from Guadalajara to Monterrey to El Paso, and finally to Houston, before being broken down and redistributed to Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Statistics show that overdose deaths among youth under 20 increased by 24% between 2023 and 2025, a spike experts now believe is directly linked to CJNG's pipeline at the airport. For years, Mendez walked the terminals as a respected security officer. But every shift, every gate he passed through, pushed the cartel's drugs deeper into American communities, quietly, invisibly, and with deadly precision. If you believe this wasn't just corruption, but a full-scale cartel infiltration, tap like and comment "expose them" below. The moment Carlos Mendez was taken into custody, federal command centers across Texas lit up. What had started as a coordinated airport raid now shifted into a full-scale operation. Investigators already knew Mendez was part of something larger. What they didn't know was how fast the network would unravel once his system went dark. At 6:12 a.m., just over an hour after the airport arrest, the FBI activated Operation Silent Gate, an interstate manhunt designed to collapse every safe house, warehouse, and distribution point tied to Mendez's CJNG pipeline. Within minutes, tactical teams were on the move: Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, Austin, Shreveport, Tulsa. The quiet early morning across the Southwest erupted into synchronized federal strikes. The first target was a warehouse outside Pasadena, Texas, a nondescript metal building listed as a refrigeration supply company. When agents breached the loading bay, they didn't find machinery. They found rows of insulated containers, the same type Mendez cleared at the airport, packed with fentanyl bricks wrapped in thermal foil. In the office upstairs, investigators uncovered handwritten route maps showing distribution chains branching out across Texas and into neighboring states. But the most violent confrontation came hours later in San Antonio, at a two-story safe house rented under an alias traced to one of Mendez's officers. As agents approached, two armed men attempted to flee in a black SUV. A brief firefight erupted, short, controlled, over in seconds. When the dust settled, agents recovered AR-15 rifles, burner phones, and a ledger listing more than 3,960 dark web shipments, all tied to Texas buyers. Those shipments were not random. They were part of a fully automated supply chain run entirely through encrypted marketplaces. Buyers paid in crypto, dropped delivery coordinates, and received drugs disguised in electronics, pet supplies, even children's toys. One investigator described it as a ghost market feeding thousands, hiding in plain sight. By midday, the crackdown intensified. In Shreveport, agents stormed a rented duplex serving as a packaging hub, where terrified teens, some as young as 16, were found forced to bag narcotics under threat from CJNG enforcers in Tulsa. A storage unit yielded ghost guns, tactical vests, and surveillance photos of airports across the region. Every raid revealed the same architecture: a digital marketplace, a distribution chain, and the unmistakable imprint of CJNG discipline. For the first time, investigators understood the scale. Mendez wasn't a rogue infiltrator. He was the Texas cornerstone of a multi-state narcotics engine silently pumping poison into American communities. And Operation Silent Gate had only exposed the first layer should federal agents strike even harder against the CJNG network. Type YES or NO in the comments. By the time Operation Silent Gate entered its second phase, investigators believed they had seen the worst of the CJNG network. But the truth lay somewhere else. Not in warehouses, not in safe houses, but inside a digital underworld that had been running quietly beneath Texas for nearly 2 years. The breakthrough came from a single clue found inside the San Antonio safe house: a crumpled piece of thermal paper containing a 32-character string of code, a login key to an encrypted darknet marketplace. It looked harmless, meaningless. But when analysts entered it into a secure terminal at the Houston field office, the screen flickered and opened a portal investigators later described as the largest fentanyl marketplace we have ever seen operating inside the United States. The site was structured like a professional e-commerce store. Clean layout, product categories, automated tracking numbers, even customer reviews. Except the products were fentanyl patches, rainbow-colored counterfeit pills, high-purity cocaine, and starter bundles for new teenage buyers. The chilling part wasn't the design, it was the scale. A database under the Marketplace's Transaction tab showed 3,960 successful deliveries between 2023 and 2025 across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and New Mexico. Each order had a coded buyer ID, crypto timestamp, and confirmation photo. Packages arrived through standard carriers, USPS, UPS, FedEx, disguised in everyday items: small speakers, vitamins, power banks, even children's coloring kits. For investigators, the implications were devastating. This wasn't casual drug dealing. It was a fully industrialized pipeline, optimized for teenagers with smartphones and access to prepaid crypto cards. Federal cyber teams moved in immediately. Using a layered attack of packet tracing, server spoofing, and metadata mapping, they identified the marketplace's host machine, not offshore as expected, but inside a townhouse in southwest Houston, disguised as a small family-run online boutique. When agents breached the home, they found 2 servers stacked behind a false wall panel, both running with military-grade encryption. The seizure triggered a full lockdown. The FBI's mobile forensic lab arrived within the hour. Windows were covered with reflective sheets. Local officers were escorted out. Only federal cyber analysts were permitted inside on the servers. Investigators discovered directories containing customer lists organized by age, with many entries marked HS, high school shipping templates for discreet packaging, and child-safe disguise kits, financial logs showing crypto flows to wallets pinging in Guadalajara, Tijuana, and Mexicali, a hidden folder labeled Roots, U.S. Expansion Q4, listing target states for next phase distribution: Nevada, Colorado, Georgia. Even more disturbing were the personal notes. In a partitioned section of the drive, agents uncovered maps of abandoned motels, rural farmhouses, and short-term rentals, locations flagged as safe houses for incoming CJNG operatives. Several had been used within the last 60 days. Every file deepened the same conclusion. Mendez's role at the airport was only the beginning. The dark web network was the engine, the silent machinery that fed thousands of users, especially the young, without ever exposing a face. By nightfall, the servers were placed in sealed evidence cases, marked with the red national security tag used only for the most sensitive intelligence. And for the first time, federal agents admitted privately what they had begun to suspect. The CJNG network in Texas was not collapsing. It was only now being revealed. If this shocked you, comment, "Stop the network," so more people see what agents uncovered. When federal agents sealed the servers and marked them with the red national security tag, the message was clear. This case was no longer just about one corrupt airport official or a few thousand drug shipments. It had crossed into the realm of national security, touching issues far larger than Texas, far larger than the Southwest, and far larger than anything investigators initially expected when they entered the Security Operations Wing at 4:58 a.m. Inside the Houston Command Center, teams began assembling the full picture, and the truth was far more unsettling than a traditional cartel pipeline. It wasn't simply a criminal enterprise, it was an infrastructure, engineered deliberately to survive arrests, shutdowns, and even the loss of key operatives like Mendez. The evidence from his home confirmed that. Agents recovered encrypted binders on CJNG recruitment methods inside U.S. airports, lists of airport personnel across Texas ranked by vulnerability communication guides for cartel members using aviation terminology instructions for avoiding federal surveillance using legitimate airport protocols. What alarmed analysts most was the precision. CJNG hadn't just smuggled drugs through airports. They had learned to mirror the structure of American institutions, embedding themselves into the same systems meant to prevent exactly this threat. Meanwhile, forensic teams continued decoding Mendez's hard drives. One file, buried deep in a partitioned sector, contained a 27-page memo detailing a planned expansion model, mapping how the cartel intended to push fentanyl distribution further east into Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia by mid-2026. Another directory held surveillance photos of terminals from Denver, Phoenix, and Las Vegas, indicating that Mendez may have been one part of a multi-state infiltration strategy, not the beginning of it. Federal officials knew sharing these details publicly would trigger panic. Instead, everything was routed into a secure compartmented briefing. Even some members of Congress were denied access. Outside the intelligence rooms, the human toll continued to shape the narrative. Overdose deaths among Americans under 20 had risen 24% between 2023 and 2025. For communities, this wasn't an abstract statistic. It was teenagers collapsing in school bathrooms, young adults found in parked cars, parents discovering pills disguised as candy in their children's bedrooms. Investigators understood then that the pipeline Mendez managed was not just moving drugs, it was reshaping an entire generation's risk landscape. But the most sobering revelation was this. Even after more than a dozen raids, even after the servers were seized, even after CJNG members were arrested across 5 states, the network did not disappear. Dark web clones began appearing within days. Test accounts tried to reconnect to Mexico, and encrypted messages resurfaced from backup channels. Operation Silent Gate had dealt a massive blow, but not a final one. To the agents who spent months tracing every encrypted message, every shipment, every corrupt official, the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. The cartel hadn't been disrupted, it had been exposed. And somewhere beyond Texas, on encrypted phones, in airport break rooms, inside servers waiting to be found, the next phase of the network was already preparing to move. In the aftermath of Operation Silent Gate, one truth rises above everything else. America's greatest vulnerabilities are never just at the border. They are the cracks inside our own systems, cracks that criminal empires like CJNG exploit with precision, patience, and silence. Tonight's case is a reminder that even in places we trust the most, like our airports, corruption can take root, grow in the dark, and endanger millions before anyone realizes what happened. But it is also a reminder of something stronger. When federal agencies move together, FBI, DEA, DHS, Homeland Security investigations, America fights back. And they don't fight halfway. They fight to protect every family, every community, every child threatened by fentanyl and the violence that follows it. Operation Silent Gate exposed an infiltration that ran deeper than anyone imagined. But it also revealed the courage of the agents who stepped into those rooms, breached those doors, and pulled a national security threat out of the shadows. Their work didn't just stop a pipeline, it saved lives that will never make the headlines. And now it comes down to us. If you believe these stories need to be told, If you believe America should know what's happening inside its own airports, neighborhoods, and institutions, then help this video reach more people. Like this video, share it, and comment below. Protect America. Your voice pushes this story past the silence. Your engagement helps expose the truth. And together, we stand with the men and women risking everything to defend this country.